Good morning, good morning. Oh, well, let's see if this video starts. It is, yes, it did. It is Sunday, August 14th, 2022. My name is Douglas Griffin. This is my Sunday school class where we're going through the book of Exodus. We started in chapter 1. We're now in chapter 10. We're beginning chapter 10. Go through verse by verse because it's easier to understand the story when you go through that way. So, last week we talked about the fact that God, when they, that God knows what He's doing. I guess that's kind of dumb. That's kind of obvious, but um, He's not sending Moses to Pharaoh and then being surprised at Pharaoh's answers. He already knows how Pharaoh's going to answer, so He knows when I say this to Pharaoh, it's going to harden his heart because that's the choice. We all make a basic choice. No one's going to get to heaven and go, I don't know. Either yes, I believe, or no, I don't believe. Yes, I want there to be a God, and I want to be His subject, or no, I want to be my own God. And honestly, those are the choices. People who don't believe in God or don't want to serve a God don't want there to be some giant person out there who tells them what to do. They want to make their own choices, live their own lives. And God allows you to make your own choices. But there are those of us who say, yeah, there's a God. And since He made everything and controls everything, it's dumb of us not to obey Him and listen to Him. He designed it all. And the good news is if we cooperate, we get life, we get abundance, health, prosperity. And I don't mean riches like millions of dollars, but we prosper, we do well in our relationships, in our home life, at school, at work. So we're glad that there's a God who designed the system, that it's not every day you're waking up wondering what's going to happen. But there are those pharaohs, I don't want there to be a God. Or I'll create my own gods because I can control them. So Wall Street is my God, or science is my God, or whatever. And none of those are evil things. It's just, do you make them your God or not? So last week we were saying, God knows that when He sends Moses to Pharaoh, it's going to harden his heart. So it'll use the language, God hardened his heart. Because He sent He sent Moses on purpose to say, let my people go. And that hardened Pharaoh's heart. And God's pushing His plan. Okay, you're going to say no, 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 no. I'm going to put you in this position so that everyone will see that you're saying no. Everybody will be clear. This is happening because you're saying no. This is not happening because God is capricious and does whatever He wants and tries to destroy people. This is happening because Pharaoh keeps saying no. So when the judgment comes, everybody at the end will say, Amen, you deserve it because you said no. Not, boy, I can't believe God did judgment. Why would a God do that? Because we're constantly saying no when He's giving us a choice to say yes, and that's why things happened. Because we want to be in charge of the universe and we aren't. We can't control things, but we think we can. So that's why horrible things happen, because we've said no to God, and God said, but these are going to be the consequences of you saying no. We say, we don't care. No. Then we see horrible things happening. Why would a God do that? Well, they're going to ask Pharaoh these very same questions. Okay, so we know there are 10 plagues altogether, and we're in we're doing plagues 8 and 9 today. God did them in groups of 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we're on 8 and 9. There's a lesson with the plagues. He's not just sending plagues to punish. For the first 3 plagues He sent, He says, thus says the Lord, by this you shall know that I am the Lord. In chapter 7, verse 17. By this you'll know that I'm the Lord. Good morning, Carol. Um, so that's why I'm sending this, so that you'll know I'm the Lord. Because for Pharaoh, you don't think I exist. And for my people, you don't know that I'm Jehovah. And He uses that specific language because He identified Himself 2 ways to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, as Elohim, as God, who will supply your current needs. But He says He did Himself as Jehovah, the one who makes a promise and then keeps it. So he He's saying they didn't know me as Jehovah. I made all these promises to them that I would bring them into this land. And he hasn't, they never saw that fulfillment. So they didn't know me as Jehovah the promise keeper. But you're going to know that I am Jehovah the promise keeper, but you're going to see the promises kept on you. So the first three plagues, Pharaoh said, you know, I do exist, I am real, and that I am Jehovah who keeps promises. Second set of plagues says that you may know that I am the Lord in the midst of the land. This is Exodus chapter 8, verse 18, when he gave the plagues 4, 5, and 6. Because it's one thing to say, oh, he's the God upstairs. I should serve the man upstairs. I'm not making fun of people who use that phrase. That they just heard that their whole life. But the idea is that he's way up there, and we're down here, and it's up to us to get everything together. But he's way up there watching from a distance. God is watching us from a distance. And he's like, nope, I'm in the midst of you. You need to know I'm in the midst of you. I'm not some uncle who lives upstairs in the attic, and I can hear you. He's in the midst of us. And so the second set of plagues was to demonstrate I'm different than all these other gods you think that you have. I'm actually in your midst. The third set of plagues, 7, 8, and 9, he says, in order that you may know there is none like me in all the world, that I'm unique, that you think you have all these gods that you're worshiping and gods who do this, but there's none like me. No God that you think you worship can do what I do. I am the only one. So I'm doing this so you know that I'm it. There's no other God. I'm it. So you're going to see things you've never seen before, and that's with plague 7, 8, 9. There are things they'd never seen. I'm going to make it hail with fire. Now you've seen hail come down, but you haven't seen it mixed with fire. I do want you to know, Jan Skinner Horton, all of these things that happened are listed in Egyptian history when you study Egyptian history, but they give a natural reason for it. Well, yeah, the lake mixed with there were some red rocks farther down, and the color mixed, and that's why the water turned red. And the frogs came out because the water was red, and they needed. And then the gnats showed up because there was a bunch of frogs, and they're all listed. But there were some unusual things. God's saying, I'm going to do these unusual things. Yes, you've seen hail before, but you haven't seen hail mixed with fire. That's mentioned, but they try to come up with some explanation for it, or they just assume, well, there's got to be some explanation for it. Scientists are just going to assume that even if they can't explain it, there is an explanation. But it's not God. The universe is billions of years old, and it's just appeared out of nowhere, and it's been moving, but it didn't. It's not God. We know there's not a God. We can't explain it. So there's certain phenomena that happen that the scientists can't explain, but they're pretty sure it's not God. So I'm going to do things you've never seen before, so that you may know there's none like me. So Exodus chapter 10, verse 1. Now the Lord said to Moses, go into Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the hearts of his servants, that I may show these signs of mine before him. So I know he's going to say no, and so I've allowed this to happen. I've said things in a way that's going to make him say no, 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 because he's already got no in his heart, so that this can get bigger and bigger and bigger. But people are going to be clear that it's his fault. He says, and that you may know. So I've done this to Pharaoh because I want to do bigger and bigger things. And that verse 2 says, and that you may know in the hearing of your sons and daughters. No, I'm sorry, that you may tell in the hearing of your sons and your sons' sons the mighty things that I've done in Egypt, and my signs which I've done among them. So I'm doing it this way so that you will pass on the information to your children and your grandchildren, on and on and on. In Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 9, he emphasizes this. He says, only take heed. So this is once they're already out, he reminds them, because he's telling them in advance, I'm doing this so that you will tell your children and your children's children. So once they are let go, in Deuteronomy 4, 9, God reminds them and says, only take heed to yourself and diligently keep yourself, guard yourself, lest you forget the things your eyes have seen, and lest they depart from your heart all the days of your life. which is why we have to keep rehearsing things and keep saying them over and over, because you'll forget. That's why we get paranoid. That's why we get panicked. We start to worry. We forget, 2 months ago, you didn't have any money and everything worked out. Remember last year, hopefully you have a friend who does this for you. I do this for some of my friends. I say, you were in the situation 2 years ago and God worked it out. Do you remember this happened and that happened? So this is no different than that, because we forget. Because once we are free from whatever the thing is, once God shows up, we go, oh, yay. And we never think of it again. We just go on our way and we forget. So he says, take heed to yourself and diligently guard yourself, lest you forget the things you have seen, lest they depart from your heart all the days of life. And teach them to your children and your grandchildren. Because you'll forget, and then you'll find yourself in the same situation, making the same choices. You'll forget that you got drunk and almost got in a car accident because I saved your life and you didn't end up in a car accident. A couple years from now, you're going to forget, and you'll start doing the same thing because you'll forget. So I want you to rehearse these stories. In Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 7, it says, you shall teach them diligently to your children. Deuteronomy 6, 7. And shall talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. You have to say these things constantly to your children. Make it part of their stories. It would change our children and our children's children if they heard the stories of how God delivered us. If that was part of our normal conversation. Oh, yeah. Sometimes we don't want to tell them about the bad times that might worry them. But no, we want to tell them, here's when God set me free here. And this is when we were in a horrible situation and God did this. If you're hearing about God from the time you're a kid, little boy, little girl, you become very conscious of God. He becomes a real person. I remember that I was, because my parents took me to church, my whole life. So God was always very real to me. God was everywhere. That's why I didn't act up most of the time, because I was clear. God's looking. I'm still that way. I'm not. I see $20 in the ground. I think, let me find out who that belongs to, because I've been taught since I was a baby. God's everywhere, and so because we don't talk about those things over and over, and our kids hear them over and over, they don't grow up with this God consciousness. And later we're like, I wonder why my kids are like this. Because you didn't talk about God enough. That it became part of their thinking. Judges chapter 6, verse 13. Gideon says to the angel shows up. And this is during the time of Judges, when they've been out for a couple hundred years. The time of Judges is about 200 years long. So they come out, and this is before the kings, right? Judges chapter 6, verse 13. Gideon said to him, "O my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why then has all this happened to us? And where are all his miracles, which our fathers told us about, saying, did not the Lord bring us out from Egypt?" We've heard those stories, but look at what has happened to us. How come there aren't any miracles? But now the Lord has forsaken us to deliver us into the hands of the Midianites. So here's what happens. God's not going to do the same sort of incredible miracles in each generation. Because they happen in proportion to how much someone is in trouble. You have to be thrown in the lion's den in order for God to send angels to deliver you out of the lion's den. If you're going to Baskin Robbins as opposed to the lion's den, he doesn't have to send an angel to protect you. Not that you're wrong in going to Baskin Robbins. I'm just saying miracles happen proportionate to the trouble, to their need. So God doesn't just show up out of nowhere. Hi, I hate to interrupt. I know you're watching Lucy, but I thought I would just raise the ceiling and just to remind you I'm here. Okay, bye. Appreciate you. And then he leaves. God, there has to be some horrible thing for us to see some big, incredible deliverance. There are millions of tiny miracles every day that happen all the time, right? But they're not those impressive, gigantic ones. And so we're lucky when we don't need God to show up and save us from a fiery furnace. So we have to recognize the little things that he's doing. In Gideon's case, they were freed, so we didn't. It says, what happened to all those big miracles when you took you out of Egypt? Well, you haven't needed that until now. Notice that now you're in that situation, Gideon. And so now he's ready to do something big. So that's the good news. When you do get in big trouble, God's ready to do something big. But you have to have been taught that that's what he does. Gideon we'd heard all these stories, but Gideon wasn't prepared. God had to really prepare him. But God, Gideon, I just need you to say yes, and I'll do the rest. Just take 300 men. You don't need 10,000, and you'll see another huge deliverance. That's the good news. God's like anxious to move on our behalf. Again, He's there every day in the midst of us doing small, tiny things because that's all we need. You know. But the good news is when we get into big trouble, if you've been taught and heard about all these miracles, then you can relax. Oh, okay, I'm so glad. So, Psalm 78, verse 5 through 8. Here's David during the times of the kings rehearsing what God does, what God has done. It says, verse 5 says, "For He established a testimony in Jacob. He appointed a law in Israel," that's with Moses, "which He commanded our fathers that they should make them known to their children, that the generations to come might know them, the children who would be born, that they might arise and declare them to their children, that they may set their hope in God and not forget the works of God, but keep His commandments and not be like their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation that did not set its heart aright and whose spirit was not faithful to God." So there are whole generations that just weren't taught. And so, and I drive down the streets sometime in the really poor parts of town because my church is near there. And I think, wow, this is a whole generation that was not taken to church. These kids didn't grow up in church. But I'm looking at the adults. I'm looking at people who just have hopelessness and they're drunk at, 8 in the morning. They're already and just line up. I think that's a whole generation that missed it. I grew up in a generation, we were all in church, whether we liked it or not. Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, Sunday school at night, BTU, they called it, Baptist Training Union. Wednesday nights, we were just raised in church. You can tell the people who were just raised in church, who heard the stories about God, and you can tell the people whose parents said, I don't feel like getting up and taking my kid to church. And their kids grow up and they don't have a sense of a creator. They just don't have that in their heads. And they're living this hopelessness. You can just see it. And they pass on hopelessness to their kids. And I think, oh my Lord, this is a whole generation that was lost. And that's what David's talking about. Whole generations that were stubborn and lived like there was no God because it had not been taught. So he's saying to Moses, I'm sending you to Pharaoh, time number 8, so that he will see my wonders in a big way, and so that you'll tell your children. So I'm going to do some big things that you can't pass off to, oh, that was just science. I mean, that was just natural. The flies just showed up for no reason. There's be no explanation for what you're about to see. Exodus chapter 10, second part of verse 2, and says, "And that you might know that I am Jehovah." So these are my 2 reasons for you. You need to know I'm Jehovah. I keep my promise. I'm reminding you of that. But I want you to tell your children. So you're going to see phenomenal things. Exodus chapter 10, verse 3. "So Moses and Aaron came into Pharaoh and said to him, Thus said the Lord God of the Hebrews, how long will you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go that they may serve me. Or else if you refuse to let my people go, behold, tomorrow I will bring locusts into your territory." Here's God. I'm always telling you in advance so that it's on you. I'm giving you the opportunity. That's on you if you don't listen. "And they shall cover the face of the earth, locusts, so that no one will be able to even see the earth." There'll be so many locusts that you won't see the earth anymore. "And they shall eat the residue of what is left, which remains to you from the hail, and they shall eat every tree which grows up for you out of the field." Now, I'm reminding you that back in chapter 9, the previous 7, 8, 9, plague 7, Exodus chapter 9, verse 31, when the hail came down and got their crops, and Moses warned them in advance and says, get your cattle out and get everything in the house because it's coming down and it's going to destroy. In verse 31 of 9:31, it says, "Now the flax and the barley were struck, for the barley was in the head and the flax was in the bud." So the flax that they made their clothes from, the barley that they made a lot of their drinks from, destroyed. It says, "But the wheat and the spelt were not struck, for they were our late crop." So they hadn't grown enough. So God waited however long it took for that wheat now to begin to bud. It says, "And now the locusts are going to come and eat that." So you had food left, but you will have no food now because that last part that is going to be gone. Exodus chapter 10, verse 6 says, "They shall fill your houses, the houses of all your servants, and the houses of all the Egyptians, which neither your fathers nor your fathers' fathers have seen. So you've never seen anything like this. It's going to come in such a way that you've never seen anything like this before. We say that sometimes. It's never been an earthquake that big or a volcano or something, in all our days. It's never gotten this hot. This is, So, and we're supposed to look up and go, what's going on? What's God trying to tell us? But we don't. Okay, so the second, okay, so they're in groups of three. The second plague, well, never mind. I'll explain that later. Okay, so you've never seen anything like this since the day that they were on the earth to this day. And he turned and he went out from Pharaoh. So you're going to see something that you can't just explain away and say that your magicians can do and all that. By the way, we haven't seen the magicians since the boils. The fleas, the gnats that got all of the magicians, they were upset about. And then the boils came and they said, this is the finger of God and I'm out. So the magicians stopped coming and trying to pretend because they couldn't do anything anymore. We don't hear from them. They're done. They're mad at Pharaoh. Why are you trying to challenge this God? We can't do what he's doing. And he keeps embarrassing us. So, Exodus chapter 10, verse 7 says, Then Pharaoh's servants said to him, How long shall this man be a snare to us? Let the man go. So now, because his servants have seen, because the prophecies always come, it's going to be on your house and on your servants and on the common Egyptians. And the servants have heard this. And sure enough, they get boils and gnats and frog. And so they say to Pharaoh, we're finally speaking up. This is the first time they've spoken up. Let him go. Hello. That may not bother you, but why are you doing this? The magicians already told that and left. So this is all on Pharaoh, right? This is why Pharaoh gets totally embarrassed in the end. Let the man go that they may serve the Lord their God. Do you not yet know that Egypt is destroyed? Do you know that the hail came and fire and destroyed? But some people just have a stubbornness, like, no, you can't bring me down. I will never be wrong. I will never admit that I'm wrong. I'll just come up with another excuse why this was not, I didn't do it, or, okay. And then so their destruction has to get bigger and bigger. The more they resist, we think, oh man, they're getting away with stuff. And God's like, no, I'm just setting up for a bigger and bigger fall. That person who keeps saying, no, I'm not going to listen. I'm going to do it my way. Okay. God knows. God's not saying, oh man, let me try again. He's already seen the end. He's allowing them to keep saying no because their fall is just going to be that much bigger. So, they gone to Moses. Moses has gone to Pharaoh and said this. The servants have said to Pharaoh, come on. Exodus chapter 10, verse 8. So Moses and Aaron were brought again to Pharaoh. And he said, right, so he gives in to the servants. Like, what's wrong with you? So he brings them in. Okay, so go serve the Lord your God. But here's a caveat. And who are the ones that are going? Like, who specifically are you taking? And Moses says, we will go with our young and our old, with our sons and our daughters, with our flocks and our herds, we will go. So all of it. You're saying which ones? All of us. The sons and daughters, the flocks, the herds, all of us, we will go, for we must hold a feast to the Lord. So all of us are going to leave. So Pharaoh says to them in verse 10, they said to him, the Lord had better be with you when I let your little ones go. Like, it'll be a cold day in hell when I let your little ones go. Because I'm going to hold your children hostage to make sure you come back. Now, he's no longer saying we want to go 3 days. He's saying, let us go so we can serve God. We're not going to worship your gods anymore because obviously your gods have all been defeated. And Pharaoh's like, no, I need this slave labor. So you can go for a little while, but I'm going to keep your children as hostages to make sure you come back. He says, beware, for evil is ahead of you. Not so. Go now, you who are men, and serve the Lord, for that is what you desired. So you adults can go, you're going to keep the children. And they were driven out from Pharaoh's presence. So he brought him in because the servants convinced him. But who all's going? Everybody's going. Nope, it'll be a cold day if I let your children go. So Moses is not leaving without the kids. So Pharaoh is still trying to have control. What is that? What's that? That's odd. God has destroyed everything. I'm still going to keep a little bit of control. So, Exodus chapter 10, verse 12. Then the Lord said to Moses, okay, stretch out your hand over the land of Egypt for the locusts, that they may come upon the land of Egypt and eat every herb of the land and all that hail has left. So Moses stretched his hand, his rod over the land of Egypt, and the Lord brought an east wind on the land all that day. So there's a storm going, blowing right from the east, all that day and night. And it was morning, the east wind then brought the locust. And the locust went up over all the land of Egypt and rested in all the territory of Egypt. And they were very severe. Previously, there had been no such locusts as they, nor shall there have been after them. So they had never seen anything like this infestation. For they covered the face of the whole land, so that the land was darkened, and they ate every herb of the land and all the fruit of the trees which the hail had left. So there remained nothing green on the trees or on the plants of the field throughout all the land of Egypt. So now the people are going to have to starve, because Pharaoh's like, no! It's like, okay, all right. Exodus chapter 10, verse 16. Then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron in haste and said, okay, I've sinned against the Lord your God and against you. Now therefore, please forgive my sin only this once, and entreat the Lord your God that he may take away from me this death only. So he went out from Pharaoh, he entreated the Lord, and the Lord turned a very strong west wind, which took the locusts away and blew them into the Red Sea, and there remained no locust in all the territory of Egypt, because the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart that he did not let the children of Israel go. So he's defeating their gods again, and I don't know, like, you're fighting against God. Don't you understand you're fighting God? You don't think God's watching? Okay. There was the jackal-headed, you've seen this jackal-headed guardian of the fields, Anubis. He's one of their gods. Neper, who is the god of their grain crops, because now all the wheat's gone. Osiris is the ruler of life and vegetation. And there's Isis and Set, who are the two gods responsible for protecting the crops also, all the crops. So he's defeating a bunch of gods all at once because they couldn't do anything. And it's clear this God is more powerful than gods we thought that existed. And that Pharaoh's heart said, no, I'm not going for it. Then the Lord said to Moses, so the third one, there's never any warning. The first one, you meet him at the Nile when he's worshiping his gods, because that's when you go to the Nile and worship his gods, and you warn him. The second plague, you go meet him at the palace. And the third one, it just comes out of nowhere. Same thing happens to number 4. Met him at the river. Number 5, go to his palace. Number 6, no warning. 7, go to his palace. Meet him at the Nile. Tell him about the hail. 8, go to his palace. 9, no warning. It's just going to happen. It's the same pattern. So then the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand toward heaven. So don't go Pharaoh. Just stretch out. This is plague number 9. That there may be darkness over the land of Egypt. Darkness which may even be felt. And if you live anywhere near water, a coastal city, sometimes a fog can come in, a thick fog can come in, and it's so thick, it's blocking out the light, right? You can feel it. You can feel it because it's so thick and you can't see anything. I don't know if you've been driving down a road or a mountain road or somewhere in a highway and the fog is so thick, you put on your high beams and they just make the fog more visible, but you still can't see anything. Oh, I think that fog so much better, but you can't see anything. You have to drive like 1 mile an hour. So this darkness came in like that, right? So that you could feel it. It was so thick. So Moses stretched out his hand toward heaven, and there was thick darkness in all the land of Egypt for 3 days. 3 days. They did not see one another, nor did anyone rise from his place for 3 days. So you know how you have to drive like 1 mile an hour? They couldn't see the person next to them. It was so thick. So they just stayed still in place because they didn't know if they're about to step on a snake. You didn't know what you couldn't see anything for 3 days. It just came from nowhere because there's no warning on 3, 6, and 9. But the children of Israel had light in their dwellings. So if you went to Goshen, oh, look, we can see. Oh, but where you are, there's darkness. So that you'll understand. You've never seen anything like this. Go for 3 days. Never seen anything like those locusts. Never seen anything like that hail with fire. So among all the Egyptian gods, none was as worshipped, venerated, this is the word they use, as Ra. Ra, the sun god. He was the most powerful one. He was known as Ra, or Re, or Atum, or Aten, and he became identified with their supreme god, who was Amun. Amon. So there's Ra, who's the God of the sun, and the supreme God, they called him Amun, Amon, like Anan, Amon, Amen, Amen. That's it. And so they had kind of became the same person, and you heard Amen Ra. So that's the supreme. So he was the supreme God of all the gods. So he's being attacked, and is viewed as the creator. He was the giver of life because the sun comes and the crops grow, and so they called Amen Ra, the God of the sun, the God who's the creator God, and God's showing. I'm attacking him last to show you. Oh look, Amen Ra. How come you can't bring out the sun? Where is he? 3 days, there's nothing. I thought he was so powerful. You're praying to him for sure. Bring us light. Nope, because he doesn't exist. I'm the God of everything. So now many of the pharaohs incorporated his name, like Ramesses is Ra. I'm in Ra. Ramesses, which means like I am the one who I come from Ra, so I'm Ramesses, right? Or Amenhotep, Amen, right? That means Amen is pleased with me. I'm Amenhotep, and Tutankhamun, Amen, right? Means I'm from the lineage of Amen. So Amen Ra. So the pharaohs would name themselves, and they actually were saying, "I'm the son of the sun god." So Pharaoh looks horrible because, well, you're the son of the sun god. You say you come from him. How come you can't do anything about this darkness? Because there is no sun god, and that's what God's trying to show them. So this God had power over all the gods, uh, so they're in total darkness for 3 days. So Pharaoh calls them Moses and says, "Go serve the Lord." This is Exodus chapter 10:24. Only let your flocks and your herds have to be kept back. Let your little ones can go with you now, but you can go serve the Lord, like not even just for 3 days. If you get out of here, it's just to make the sun come back, please. But you can't take your herds and your cattle and your flock. Moses like, no. Why do you keep setting conditions on this? Moses said in verse 25, you must also give us sacrifices and burnt offerings. That means we sacrifice to the Lord. We have to sacrifice to our God, to God. So you can't dictate to that. And then we have to eat. So we're taking everything. Why must you? Because you can't give in total. You always have to have some. Some people are that way, right? Our livestock shall go with us, and not a hoof shall be left behind. For we must take some of them to serve the Lord our God. Some we have to eat, and some we don't know. He says, oh, and even we do not know with what we must serve the Lord until we arrive there. So we have to take everything, because God may say sacrifice a lamb or cow, or we don't know what he's going to say, so we're taking everything. Sorry. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, verse 27, and he would not let them go. Then Pharaoh said to him, "Get away from me, take heed to yourself, and you will see my face no more." So he's like, I gave you everything you wanted except, of course, food and your cattle and your sacrifices. So that's it. I am done with you, Pharaoh. Moses, you will see my face no more. Now, this was a threat that it's like you're banned from going to court. You can never, if something happens to you, you can't go before a judge. You can't plead your case ever again. You're banned. You're just stuck. Consequences will just come on. You can live your life, but you never get to come before me and ask for any sort of forgiveness or ask for anything. Joseph did this when his brothers first came to see him. And he filled up their carts, but he said, "Do not come back. You will not be able to see my face ever again unless you bring your brother with you." Because he wanted to see, is my brother alive? I don't. They could be lying just to get, because they've lied to me before. That's how I ended up in the pit. So they went back home and they're eating. In Genesis chapter 43, verse 2, it says, "It came to pass when they'd eaten up the grain which they brought from Egypt, that their father said to them, 'Go back and buy some food.' But Judah spoke to him and said, 'The man solemnly warned us, saying, you shall not see my face unless your brother is with you.'" Well, this is a thing. This is the only thing that pharaohs can threaten people. Now, they can take your life, but that's kind of rare. But the thing they can get you with, you will not see my face. David did this. When Absalom, okay, so David had like 4 or 5 wives, and he had children from each wife, and they are stepchildren because they have the same father, different mothers. So some of the stepbrothers felt like when they saw the sisters from other families, well, we don't have the same mama, so I'm going ahead and take you. So one of the stepbrothers took one of the stepsisters and raped her, and Absalom killed him. This made David sad because all the children were his. And he had a different way he would have dealt with it other than Absalom, who's the problem. So he banished Absalom. In 2 Samuel chapter 14, verse 24, it says, "And the king said, let him return to his own house, but do not let him see my face." So Absalom returned to his own house, but did not see the king's face for a couple of years. That's the punishment. This is so Pharaoh's saying, you will never see my face again. So that is like, oh, this is the biggest punishment I can give. In Exodus chapter 10, second part of verse 28 says, "For in the day you see my face, you shall die." So if you do poke your face back in here, I'm going to have you killed. And Moses in verse 29 says, "You've spoken well. I will never see your face again." You're right. And because God had already told him how it was going to end. So, okay, you're kind of prophesying, we saw the self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm actually never going to see faith again because the last thing God's going to do, you're going to be so broken up, you're not even going to leave this room. You're not even going to send for me. You're just going to let everybody go. But it's going to be your fault that you're broken up. God keeps warning you and warning you and warning you, and you're the one. I'm just looking at something that Rodney said. So you're the one that's you're going to want to see me, but you're not even going to be able to. So you're right. This is it. I'll never see your face again. Even when the Pharaoh was chasing them, he never got close enough to them before God destroyed him. So yeah, I'm never going to see your face again because God wins in the end. If we could just understand that God wins in the end. Boy, if we could just get that, that'd be like the best lesson you could teach people. You think you're getting away with stuff. You think you're, but you're not. God, your uncle may have gotten fooled, and Granny may have gotten tricked, and you may have eaten your auntie's. Her butter may have gotten away in your pancakes, and she didn't even know what's all my butter gone. But God's watching, so we can't. We think we can fool, but God's watching. Okay, so I'm going to end there. We're going to spend the whole time on the 10th plague next week and all that went with it and all that it meant. Probably a couple weeks because we get the Passover from it. We get so much from this final plague because God is economical and He puts it all together. He makes it all work together. So thank you. I am preaching at my church at 11 o'clock. It'll be like 11:15 by the time I get up. A service from 11 to 12. And I'm starting a new teaching on the book of Samuel. We're going to go through 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel. So Wednesday nights, we're in the book of John, we're in the book of Exodus on Sundays, and once a month, I'll be going through the book of Samuel. So if you want to tune in, you can listen to that. Or anytime, you can go to it. It'll be on my page, it'll be on our Good Shepherd page if you want to listen to it next Tuesday. And if you think, I've heard enough of his voice, so I'm good. I totally understand that. All right, thanks so much, and I will see you next Sunday or in an hour and a half when we're going over the 10th plague. All right, thanks. Bye-bye.